Welcome to VezaTalks podcast. Today, I'm honored to have a really amazing guest with us, Ashutosh Garg. And Ashutosh hosts a very successful video and podcast series titled The Brand Called You, bringing the stories of successful entrepreneurs, professionals, and senior corporate leaders to thousands of listeners. A published author of 8 best-selling books, he writes regularly for Times of India and Business World and can often be seen on national television panel discussions. Shutosh is also a mentor to several of India's most successful CEOs on strategic planning, succession planning, personal branding, as well as people and culture issues. Welcome.
Thank you, Mario. Pleasure to be
I'm
here.
absolutely. So the first thing that I want to say is that I think we have a friend in common, which is kind of amazing. Gaurav Sekri, GV.
God,
You
yeah,
know him?
yeah. Gaurav Sekri is a very good friend. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Mm.
we've been friends for about 10 years,
Okay.
and I told him that you're gonna be on the podcast, and he was like, "Yes, he's a friend of mine."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
He's a
it's
very good friend through the YPO. We are both
that's
members
right,
of the
YPO.
YPO.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually met about 10 years ago. He was in Vancouver. I was living
Mm.
then in Vancouver. I'm currently
Mm.
in Serbia, and
Mhm.
he was passing through, and we were part of, I believe, it was a small world or something. And he hit me up, and he's like, "Hey, let's network." And we went for lunch, and we got along so well that I took him for dinner, and we have been friends ever since. So
Wonderful.
it's
How
always nice to
wonderful.
have somebody in common, you know.
Likewise. We were on holiday in Serbia 3 years ago.
Really?
Mm.
Oh, amazing. Were you just in
My
Belgrade,
wife
or
and
did
I,
you?
we were just driving between in Croatia, Serbia.
Oh,
So,
amazing. That's wonderful. Well, that's really great. So, I've looked at all your accomplishments and
mhm.
everything, and there's so much that the podcasts and your experiences and your mentorship and everything, that I didn't even write any questions. It's
Mhm.
like, so I don't know where this is gonna go, but I think having a nice chat about
Sure.
life and business would be really nice. I
Yeah.
think your wisdom is infinite, and maybe one of the things you can tell our listeners is, where you are from. Obviously, it's India, but maybe what was your childhood like, and what were your ambitions, and how did you get to be such an outstanding member of society and a known person?
Okay. Thank you, Mario. Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to speak to a fellow podcaster. But let me start by saying that I grew up in a middle class home in India. My father was a very senior and decorated brigadier general, and therefore we grew up in an army environment. We were three brothers. Um, like you would see with most Indians, education is the focus for every parent, and therefore, my father always used to tell us that I, given the salaries that army officers used to have in those days, he always said that I can give you fantastic education, I can give you fantastic values, but I don't think I will ever have enough wealth to leave behind. As it so happens that he did leave behind a lot of property, which became very valuable at later stage. Uh, so my own life was, on how does one educate oneself. So I was reasonably okay as a student. I went in to do my business school in one of the top schools from India, and then I joined India Tobacco ITC Limited,
Okay.
which is owned by British American Tobacco. I spent 17 years with BAT India, and after that, I moved on and I spent 8 years running Asia for Lockheed Martin and Hughes, as you know, in the aerospace business. And then I became an entrepreneur and I founded India's second largest chain of pharmacies. So that's a quick background about my own journey and what I have done.
Amazing. It's really it's really cool to speak to somebody that has so much experience in different facets of business and entrepreneurship. What would you say was your favorite uh, project or favorite position, and why?
It's very difficult to be able to single out anything because I've done so many different things.
Right.
But I would say that one amazing journey that I had was when I decided to become an entrepreneur. I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 46. And I remember telling my wife and my children that I'm going to start a chain of pharmacies. And obviously, when you talk of a chain of pharmacies, you've got to start with one shop. So when I
Right.
opened my first shop, people used to wonder, what am I doing? Because I'd come out of a very, very senior corporate career. And here I was with one shop standing behind the counter, trying to sell medicines. But that was a very, very fascinating journey that I had. And I would probably do it again if I got a chance again to do that, because it taught me everything, from a tremendous amount of humility to be able to clean shop floors, to dealing with customers, to listening to customer complaints, to handling a very, very large team of employees, to really understanding what are the various challenges an entrepreneur has. So
Right.
I would say, out of my whole journey, my last 14, 15 years as the founder of India's second largest chain of pharmacies would probably be most exciting.
Amazing. It really speaks to the fact that entrepreneurship or starting a business does not have to have anything to do with age. As we know, KFC with
Hmm.
the Colonel, I believe, is 73 when he started or something crazy like that.
Correct.
So it really gives hope, so to speak, for people that
Hmm.
always wanted to start a business and delayed it until perhaps their kids were old enough and had time to do it, whatnot. But I mean, you're a true testament towards somebody starting in their late 40s and
Hmm.
becoming successful. So, starting a pharmacy in India would be something that it definitely sounds like a crazy journey. So, you basically opened one. You wanted to familiarize yourself with the workings of the ins and outs. And then, how did you expand? Did you just do one by one, or did you use the
No, no,
franchise model?
it was just very, very organic, one by one.
Okay,
Because that's the only way to grow the pharmacy business in India, because it is a very, very fragmented business, and I was probably the first or the second individual to start a chain, and we built it from a single store into over 250 stores
amazing.
over a period of 10 or 12 years. So it was an amazing journey. No acquisitions involved, and these were all company-owned stores, no franchising at all.
Right. And so basically, you opened one after another. What gave you a call it a competitive advantage? Was it just that India having a great population needed more pharmacies, or was it that you did something different?
Well, India has over 800,000 pharmacies. So I don't
Wow.
think I could say that India needed more pharmacies. It is probably one of the most ubiquitous services that you can find in every nook and cranny of India. Um, One of the reasons that we wanted to position ourselves differently was that uh, then and even today, a very large number of medicines that are sold are not necessarily the correct kind of medicines.
Okay.
So, therefore, we took the platform of 100% reliability, which was, I think, very critical and very important. And the second thing was that when a patient walks into any pharmacy, and if you go into the large American pharmacies, I'm sure you've experienced this, where if you go and ask for 6 items, the pharmacist will say he's got four and doesn't have the balance two, and
Right.
you come back later. Now that's the same in virtually every pharmacy. Therefore, we said that in the chain that I founded, it was critical to ensure that when a patient or a customer walked in with a prescription of 6 medicines, all 6 would be available or delivered within 30 minutes to them.
Amazing. So there you go. There was your unique selling propositions, right? It's
Correct.
similar to Pizza Hut. I don't know, 15 years ago when they said hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less, or yeah, it's
Or
free.
free. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, one of the best USPs I've ever seen in my life. So that's incredible. I mean, that's really really interesting about how you can penetrate a market that has 800,000 pharmacies, and yet you
Mhm.
managed to grow it to over 200. That's really amazing. So then, how did you get involved in the U.S. Aerospace industry? I mean, this is quite the departure of
So this
verticals.
was before, this was well
Okay, okay,
before my entrepreneurial journey. But after
right.
16 years or 17 years with British American Tobacco, I was one of the senior corporate leaders in Singapore.
Okay.
And I guess in those days, I'm talking of 96 now, in those days, there weren't too many, corporate leaders who were of my age at that time. 1996, I was 38, 39 years old. And, therefore, it was interesting to see people were reaching out to me for very, very diverse roles. And a role in aerospace was something that excited me, and therefore I decided to take it up. I mean, there were enough and more opportunities available across multiple areas, but I knew nothing about aerospace, and therefore I said, let me learn a little more.
Right. Yeah, it's great uh, to learn and embark on journeys that are new. I know myself. I've started five startups, and
Hmm.
each one of them was basically, hey, let's make it happen. Let's learn as we go,
Correct.
and put in the hard work, and
Mm.
work your 18 hours a day and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, really really interesting. So um, then about your podcast, a brand
Hmm.
called You. When
Mm.
did you start that? And I see there's over 1,800 podcasts on that
Mm.
particular
Mm.
platform. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I started this podcast with the primary objective of giving back 4 years ago. I remember when I was 21, 22 years old, straight out of an MBA, I was always looking for books of corporate leaders, and very few books were available in those days. Today, thousands of books are available, but the young are not reading enough.
Right.
So, therefore, I said, let me start conversations because uh, this is, the world of corporate leaders is a world that I know well. So, I said, let me start having conversations. And this seems to have struck a chord amongst the young, um, which is why we get 125 to 150,000 views and listens every day
Amazing.
across multiple platforms. We were also experimenting with, you know, what the young are now seeing, which are the equivalents of the TikTok 1 minute videos.
Yep.
So we started taking out 1 minute segments from our recordings and posting them on TikTok's biggest competitor from India called Chingari,
Hmm.
and there we get over 2 million visitors per day. So,
Unbelievable.
so we've just crossed 314 million views on
Wow.
this single platform.
Incredible.
So that's how
Congratulations.
it started. It's acquired a life of its own. I've got five other friends who have become hosts. Three in North America, one in the Netherlands, and one in South India in a city called Bangalore.
Yep.
Um, Many of them are YPO members like me, and therefore, this has just become, or it has probably become, one of the world's largest platforms for what we refer to as leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom. That's how
Incredible.
it started, and that's what we are doing there.
Amazing. Amazing. Congratulations. I mean, I
Thank
looked at it, and some of the guests, I mean, including Vicente Fox, former president of Mexico. Did you interview him or?
I did. I
Oh,
interviewed him.
amazing. What was that like? So, as a fellow podcast host, what was it like to interview? Was he? I'm not sure if he was a president at the time or it was former president, but what was
No,
it
he
like
was
to
the
have?
former president. He was the
Uh,
former president,
right.
and I've been fortunate to talk to many, many, many senior, leaders, political leaders, and corporate leaders, of course. Um, what was fascinating when I spoke to President Fox was um, just the perspectives that a person of his stature and his level in the world is able to provide. When you're the president of a country, no matter how big or small it is,
Right.
your perspectives are about the world, about the globe, and that is something which I found very, very fascinating about him. The other thing I found very fascinating about my conversation was with him was how easily he was able to talk about uh, the areas where Indians have been very successful
Hmm.
because of their understanding of technology, and how he felt that there's a lot of work to be done with people who are in Mexico, especially in the area of information technology.
Right. Incredible. I mean, I'm very familiar with Mexico. I used to live in San Diego for 10 years, and so
Hmm.
Mexico was very close. I have
Yeah.
many close friends from Mexico, and I spend a considerable amount of time in Mexico City networking and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I really love the culture. I love their perspective. It's a really rich country, and it's there's more to. I mean, there's more to any country that really just the media gives us. It's the same with Serbia. It's the same with India and whatnot. So
Mhm.
that brings me to the next perspective, and that is, yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people from the Middle East. A lot of business owners have been moving headquarters to Dubai,
Mhm.
and now Saudi seems to be the latest craze. um, I find that the Middle East has really done the right thing in attracting businesses and thought leaders, opening up even crypto, which I think is fantastic. Um, how is India, in your opinion, positioning itself to grow in terms of the next 10, 20, 30 years? I mean, the sheer number of people is a huge
Yeah.
asset, obviously,
Yeah.
right?
He's from.
The question is the Middle East, Dubai, UAE, and also now Saudi is really trying to attract the right type of businesses and business leaders and
Mhm.
thought leaders, including crypto. How do you see India positioning itself in the next 10, 20, 30 years to compete with this type of crowd, so to speak?
So, Mario, let me, this is an area that I do write about quite often, and I, talk about it quite a lot. Uh, the Middle East, whether it is Saudi Arabia or the UAE, has a very, very close working relationship with India. And I don't think this will ever be competition. There's a lot of complementarity between the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and India. Um, Look at it this way: that UAE is such a powerful economy, and I've not lived there, but I've gone there God knows how many times. In the 90s, ITC used to India Tobacco used to have a very large office that used to report to me when I used to live in Singapore. I haven't traveled so much to Saudi Arabia, but I have some very, very close friends in Saudi Arabia. I've only been there a couple of times. I think both these economies are amazing opportunities for a lot of people from India to go and work. There is a lot of money available in these economies, and therefore they are putting serious money into India. I know that I think Saudi government has committed, and I could be wrong with these numbers, but I'm just putting some numbers.
Sure.
With a caveat that this could be a little different, but I'm told that upwards of $100 billion worth of investments are likely to come from Saudi Arabia into India, and upwards of $75 billion is likely to come as investments from UAE into India. Now,
Amazing.
when we look at these kind of things, UAE and Saudi Arabia will undoubtedly have extremely good infrastructure, but they will rely on the massive market that India has to offer.
Right.
India has a population of 1.4 billion people, with a middle class, exceeding 500 to 600 million people, and therefore a lot of Indian companies may set up offices, may set up some manufacturing facilities or trading facilities in both these countries, but the market, whether it's for Indian businessmen, UAE or Saudi businessmen, or for that matter, businessmen from any other country who are looking at India, the market will be in India. So I don't see any challenge. On the other hand, I do see India, which is the fifth largest economy in the world today, expected to be the third largest economy in the next 3 or 4 years' time. And then it's going to be, how India will grow in comparison to the US and China.
Right.
So these are three major economies, and most countries in the world are looking at India as a potential market for their goods and services.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I mean, I know I've dealt in the tech sector for, 15 years now, 20 years now. And,
Mhm.
Bangalore obviously is a big tech center and everything. So I'm quite aware of it. How would you say a company such as, for example, Veza Digital, which I am a business advisor for, and I do the
Mhm.
podcast, um, having we have over 60 employees now. We're growing at a rapid rate. We're going to be expanding into Dubai as well.
Mhm.
And how would you recommend a company that does digital advertising and digital assets would position itself to be able to conduct business in India, for example. So is that something that is there like a a playbook, or what would you recommend a company, a mid-sized company like us would have to do?
So my own quick response to you is that India is a market that is welcoming all technology companies. We have technology companies from all over the world that have started to make a base here for two simple reasons. Number one, we have a very large talent base, a technology talented base, which can very easily adapt to whatever your technology needs may be. I would be surprised if within Veza Digital you already don't have several people of Indian origin working on your technology. The second part is that whatever goods and services that Veza Digital has to offer, you will have a ready market for it. And it has often been said for Indian companies and for Indian leaders that they are always willing to experiment with something new once they are convinced it'll be good for them. They're always willing to jump a whole generation of technology to
Right.
make sure that uh, their organization, their people have access to whatever is the most contemporary and whatever is the latest.
Right. No, makes sense. I mean, we don't have any Indian working for us. Most of our
Mhm,
IT infrastructure is actually in Serbia. It's quite
mhm.
large here as well, but
Yeah.
we are looking at expansions, and so that's really, really good advice. So
Mm,
I want to switch topics a little bit, and that is, I know that you've written 8 books, and
mhm,
that usually when you become successful and you go through several ups and downs, you get into your 50s, and you change your priorities into a more, call it, spiritual realm, and you
mhm,
start questioning what all this money is for. And you basically start reinventing yourself in a way. So I imagine that you have gone through this process, or maybe you're going
mhm.
through it now, and I'm not sure. What are some of the wisdoms that you can entertain us with, so to speak?
Well, it's difficult to be able to summarize anything about wisdom, but let me give you one or two interesting thoughts that I have, and I've often said this to many people, and you're absolutely right. I'm 66 years old, and many years ago I started to say that why do I need one more zero added to my net worth?
Yep.
I can still only eat so much, and I can still only enjoy so much whiskey, but I can't keep on splurging money.
Right.
So one thing I tell a lot of young people is stop starting, start finishing. I think it's very important. We love to keep on doing many new things, but we don't necessarily look at how we are going to see whatever we started to its logical conclusion. I think that's
Right.
a very important factor that I would recommend to everybody else, and whoever. I mean, that's how I've also believed in it. And along with it, I also keep saying that it's important to be very consistent in whatever you are doing. You're a podcaster. I have met so many podcasters who say, "Oh, we started a podcast. We did 20 of them, and then we stopped for 6 months, and then we restarted." So I think when you are working with people who are listening to you, who are talking to you, or if you're doing any other kind of thing, it's important to be consistent and keep going on, delivering whatever you have committed to do. The second point is that I was, and would be a very philosophical kind of a question, that life is hard. Life is hard for everybody, irrespective of how young or old, how wealthy or not so wealthy you may be. But it is very important for each one of us to focus on our own journey rather than continuously keep looking at what someone else has. Because when you keep looking at what someone else has and not look at what you have, um, there's bound to be a lot of frustration. And therefore, I think that's a very important factor for us to keep at the back of our mind. And I would finally say that, whatever we keep doing, whatever we keep thinking, whatever we keep on dreaming about, it is very, very important to be able to make sure that um, our path, whatever path we are taking, it that does not determine our future. We just have to keep on betting on ourselves. We got to make sure that whatever we are doing, we are creating opportunities for ourselves, and we are constantly reinventing ourselves and constantly learning more and more.
Absolutely, I agree with you. It's about being mindful and present. And I'm also a student of Deepak Chopra, which
Uh-huh.
has amazing wisdom. And it
Yeah.
is about really enjoying the journey as much as it sounds like a cliche. I continuously have to pull myself into the present to be able to enjoy really today rather than thinking about tomorrow. And as an entrepreneur, you're always thinking about tomorrow, and
Hmm.
then you don't enjoy it, and I think that's a really
Correct.
difficult process. Yeah, absolutely. So I saw that you like Indian classical music. I've never heard of Indian
Hmm.
classical music. I'm very familiar with the European classical music, but tell us a little bit about Indian classical music and why you or how you got to
Well,
have an
I, I
interest in that.
I would say, like a lot of things from India, Indian classical music is probably older than the West ever thought about music. It is thousands and thousands of years old. It is the
Wow.
same seven notes that are there in every other form of music, but it's a part of Indian culture, and it's been there for thousands of years from all our old scriptures. So Indian classical music has been there for forever. I play the Indian flute, um, which I've been playing for several years. And when I say the Indian flute, it is just a small bamboo uh, flute with six holes in it.
Okay.
That's what I play. So it gives me a lot of satisfaction. It gives me a lot of time to introspect, and it gives me a lot of time to be with myself when I'm alone with my flute. It's also a simple instrument from the perspective of carrying it around because it fits into any suitcase or any
Right.
bag. You don't need any accompaniments, and so Indian classical music is something which you can keep on going, and you can speak for hours and hours and hours on the multiple formats of Indian classical music, or the multiple kinds of notes that you can do, how changing one small note actually creates what you would call a new rag. So there are many, many different aspects of Indian classical music.
Very interesting. I love it. I played the organ when I was a kid. Actually, my
Mhm,
grandfather, who was Russian and emigrated to Serbia in
mhm,
1917, 18, he basically taught himself every instrument there is in this world. And he taught
mhm,
me a lot of things about instruments. And that's why I like the question. So, finally, my last question to you is
mhm.
a question that I ask every guest, and that is if you were in my shoes and you asked a question to yourself that I didn't ask, what would that be?
Um, I would probably say that how important has your family been to you
Okay.
in your journey? And let me give you a response to that. I mean, I think my wife's an academician, probably one of the senior most IB teachers in the country. We have two sons. Both our sons are senior corporate leaders in Singapore and USA. One with Visa Corporation, the other with Procter and Gamble, and we've just had a granddaughter. So I
Oh,
think
congratulations.
thank you. For most of us, and certainly from my perspective, everything that I do, everything that I work for, everything that gives me joy is ultimately the strong values that my family has, the strong bonds that my family has. And for me, every time I try something new, I know that I will always have the amazing support of all my family.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely great words of wisdom. I think family is very important. One of the reasons that I moved back to my birthplace, even though I'd never lived in Serbia or Eastern Europe,
Mm.
is the traditional values and the family values that seem to be getting lost in the Western world. So thank you
Mhm.
very much. I really
Thank
appreciated
you.
talking to you. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we get to meet and have a whiskey with GV.
Absolutely. Look forward to that.
Thank you
Thank you
very
again.
much.